You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We're here to answer your mental health questions, and excited today to have a really interesting listener question, and one that I feel like is on a lot of people's mind. It's all about AI, and we'll ask the question, or we'll present the question in just a minute. But first, I want to introduce our therapist that we're interviewing. It's Garrett Cottrell. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Garrett actually works on the back end of the podcast doing editing, so it's fun to have you here on the front end.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So Garrett, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about you, what brought you to therapy, what not as a therapist, what
That's
brought
okay.
you.
We can get into that too.
You may be doing therapy yourself too, but what brought you, what made you decide? I know you kind of have an interesting story that I'd love to hear a little bit about.
Yeah. So I went to business school originally for my undergrad. Mm-hmm. I studied accounting, and I went into mostly small business and did that for 10, 12 years, and including owning my own business, and got to a point where I was able to kind of pivot and decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. And I kept zooming out and realized that this is the route I wanted to go. So I'm getting my master's in social work, and going into therapy. And it's been, I've had so many like confirmations that I made the right decision all along the way.
Very cool.
And so I've loved it.
I love that. And what a right turn. I mean, really, or left, or however you want to say, but really big change.
If you showed me this scene 5 years ago, I would have no idea where I am.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. But it's where you're meant to be. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And
love it.
That's awesome. Well, Garrett has been at Therapy Talk since January, and it's been awesome to have you working with us. So really excited to tackle this question with you.
Me too.
And the listener had a longer question about can AI replace therapy? But then actually they went farther in and just basically said, please explain why they can't, right? So let's just start with that. Like, can AI really replace your therapist? We are seeing AI all over the place, right? Chat bots and apps, and it's everywhere. And there is a promise that we're hearing about emotional support that people can gain from AI. So let's just talk about that first of all. Do you believe that people can gain emotional support from AI?
I guess the question, will it replace my therapist? No. Will it become part of my therapy? Yes, absolutely. And so the question about like how will it be integrated? I think there are a lot of different points where it will be, but what we do in therapy, the different modalities or the interventions or the tools or the actual content that we go through as therapists with people is that's always growing and expounding on different research and tools and methodologies.
But can it replace the therapist? I think at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are using it as a therapist, saying, I'm just typing in my problems. And it's amazing. As I was preparing today, I thought, I'm going to just type in. And I thought it actually is pretty validating. It'll say, gosh, Lindsay, that's hard. Or I can see why you'd feel that way, right? I typed in, this is happening and I feel really anxious, right? And it was validating. And I thought, well, that felt good, even though I'm reading it, right? But why do you feel like is the biggest reason it cannot replace a therapist?
Sure. I think probably the biggest part is where it's getting its information. If the individual, if I am seeking therapeutic support from AI, its starting point is me, and it's not someone with a totally different experience, or it's not someone who has seen resolution to something I might be dealing with all the way through. And so if it's feeding off of me, it's possible that it will just cycle through and kind of come back with just a lot of validation, but maybe getting stuck pretty easily. And doing my own research and preparation for this, I absolutely used AI.
Okay.
I tried to use it a little bit less, maybe because of
ironically.
I don't want to target on my back or anything, but something interesting that I found was I asked a couple of questions, and I was trying to get some more objective information, and in the response it said something like, "Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll respond in the context of social work and therapy." And I didn't say anything about social work.
But does it know you're a social worker?
Yeah. And so it knows that. And so it responded, it kind of jumped to a conclusion of what it thought I was asking. And so I went and used some AI tools that I've never used before to see if I could kind of get around that. And you can, until that one gets to know you. And then it's ultimately, I think, feeding off of the information that you provide it, and it can get a little tricky there.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it feeds off the information you provide it, right? And a lot of therapy is attuning to your client and seeing actually, oh, wait a minute, you hesitated there, or something came up for you, I noticed, or you're kind of skirting around that point, right? As a therapist, we're thinking that, but AI can't detect emotions, it can't detect distress, and so you're right, it's like whatever we put in are the outputs that it's going to give. So much less human, right?
Yeah.
The other piece I think is interesting is one of the ways that I believe we heal is in relationship, and having a relationship with something that is not real. I mean, not a person. Curious your thoughts about that.
Sure. Yeah, and I think kind of taking a step back to answer that, back to the information that I provided beforehand and the social work component that it brought into it. One critique might be, well, I could give it the right prompt and say, don't be influenced by this information. But I told it not to be influenced by something. What if someone told you that as a therapist well, don't take this part into consideration. You can't just take that out. You can't take out part of your own background as a therapist or part of the interactions that you've had. And so there's just that dynamic always going back and forth and potential bumps in the relationship and repairing that with a person. That's a lot different than coaching an AI tool of, okay, AI, don't validate me so much. Okay. So now it doesn't validate you as much, but that's so because that's what you wanted it to do.
Yes.
And,
not real relationship.
Yeah. And I should add that, the context here are the tools that are like the consumer level. Like you go online, you search, you find an AI tool that you interact with. AI is a lot broader than that, obviously. And so, but the tools that people are using on their phones and Gemini and ChatGPT and all the common ones, I think what we're talking about applies to those.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting to me to hear you say that, like it will do exactly what we say. And that's not real relationship, right? That's not even real therapy. To say, I didn't like the way you push back, Garrett, as my therapist. No, thank you. And then we have a dialogue about that pushback and about the discomfort around that. And to me, that's where so much richness actually comes from, is really like what's going on in this space, in this moment. And that's, again, that real human interaction that you can't get with AI.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you think people are turning to AI because they want help, or is it because there's a fear of vulnerability with a therapist, that it's kind of a safe space to do that? Curious your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I definitely think that it's easier to talk to, a tool in private, and maybe there's some value to that of, well, if you can't talk to somebody, maybe putting it down in writing, starting that somewhere and starting to address something that you want to address in your life. That's great. That's a step in the right direction. But ultimately, what's the end goal? And it's kind of like, where are you on that journey from dealing with an issue, call it an issue or a problem or whatever we want to change in our situation. And so where are we in that journey? If we were here to be interacting with apps, it'd be a great thing. Like, it'd be a great end tool to be using for that, right? But ultimately, it's how am I going to put into practice what I need to get less irritated at the driver next to me on the freeway.
Sure.
The AI tool can tell you everything that it can tell you, but as we get closer to implementing these changes and things that we're learning in therapy, we're getting closer and closer to the real world. And so, with your therapist modeling something, or in group therapy especially, you're actually having those interactions and you're practicing in real time with real content. And I see that progression as leading you into finding that change that you're looking for in the real world. And so the starting point might be different, but ultimately, where do you want to take it?
Yeah. I love that idea. It's a great starting point.
Sure.
Right? It's a way to start. It's a way to get curious. It's a way to kind of start the conversation, but a starting point. I really appreciate that, because again, I don't think the purpose is to say like, no, AI is bad. It's going to be a part of our life. There's no question. Right. And it already is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to integrate in so many areas of our life, but I like that idea that it's a place to start, and to recognize like that's an important place to start, but it can't hold you accountable. Like you said, like I always tell clients that like the real work happens not in here, but like when you're out in real life, and then you're applying those tools, and then we come back and talk about how did it work, what went well, what didn't. It's hard to have that kind of accountability, right? So yeah.
It can't get disappointed.
It can.
Right.
Yeah.
It can't have those actual, as therapists, we're always striving to be as objective and steady as we can be. But when something's disappointing, it's disappointing. And as a therapist, we want to model how to be disappointed in a healthy way. And even if that means disappointment in someone's situation or how they're doing, that's a real experience to be disappointed. And that's just an example, right? But AI is never going to actually be disappointed.
No, it won't.
Even though I find myself telling it, please and thank you.
I do too.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get away from that. I think there's something there, but
it's again, it goes back to like, we are not used to this. Like we are used to human interaction, and please and thank you are a part of that, right? Like we show up with manners, and we do our part. So I'm actually with you. I think that I'll say, do you, asking it, do you think this, or, and I'm like, yeah, it's not a you, but I'm still not even sure how to refer to it. Right. Yeah.
And I think there's something to that of why do I like not really know how to interact with this thing? You've got a shovel. You don't tell it, please and thank you. You use it and you set it down and you take care of it so that it can do its job later. But it's a shovel. It's a tool. With AI, it's not, that's really what it is. But we find ourselves saying please and thank you to it. And there's something there.
Gosh, that's a great point. That is a great, in fact, Marie Kondo, she talks about thanking things and like your clothing. Thank you for the way it served me and whatever. And it's funny you say that, like the shovel, because you never would think to thank a shovel. And I remember thinking, okay, do I like thank my clothing for it serving me, and feeling a little bit weird about that. But the truth is, it's like, why? There's something to be said for that like, consider that there's a discomfort, but it's confusing because it actually is giving you feedback. It's feeling like there's some type of engagement or interaction, but in fact, it's the same. It's a computer,
right?
It's a shovel is different, but in fact, it's an inanimate object. So get curious about why that feels a little strange.
Yeah. And I think one is the gratitude, right? Like we want to be grateful for what we have and appreciate the clothing that we've had, and even if we're retiring it, we want to be grateful for that. And so the spirit of gratitude versus the actual communicating with an inanimate object.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because we've heard about people getting in relationships with AI bots and it becoming really problematic. I'm sure you know about stories along those lines as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some tragic things that have happened. Some people who have developed a relationship, and again, it's a relationship with an inanimate object. So it's happening internally. A lot of this is all happening internally within a person, but, there's the tragic story of a young boy who died by suicide after interactions with AI. And there's a lot going on there. You can't simplify that to just one variable, but it's definitely something that needs to catch our attention and that we need to address and know what's happening and why something like that can happen, and what are we doing to prevent that. And maybe that's part of how we look at things like suicide. Yeah. Is how do we intervene when AI is involved? Maybe that's something specific. And so again, it's not the yes, no, good, bad absolutes, but it's how do we keep up with it, and what do we do differently? Yeah,
I love that. And how do we use it appropriately, right? And, one of the things as you were talking, I thought it's interesting because we talk about loneliness and how it's like an epidemic right now, right? Vivek Murthy, the last Surgeon General, talked about that was his big focus, was loneliness, was our biggest problem that America was facing. Now, it's interesting because I think, you can feel this false sense of connection, much like we do on our phones or we do on social media, and we're looking for connection, but instead of finding it in real humans, we're going to these other, we're going to social media, we're going to AI to try to find connection. But in fact, it's really isolating, which is just the irony of the whole thing. It's really like, oh, that's what I need. So I'm going to turn to my phone and I'm going to turn to my computer. But what we really need is face to face and to sit in like the joy of connection and the pain of the discomfort and all those emotions and be willing to engage with all of that.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that when we use AI to a degree that is, and again, what's appropriate and inappropriate is different for everybody. But when we're seeking connection and we go and try to find it there, we will often end up doing the opposite and finding more isolation and loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, several things come to mind as you're saying that. In researching this and in hearing the experts talk about AI, it's a lot of delineation between how things are right now, what AI looks like right now, and how they think it will look, and the prediction. And they're the first to acknowledge that no one knows where this is going. And so you apply that thought to other things like social media. When the term social media was coined, were they realizing that it was going to be the most ironic thing that they could do by calling it social media?
Yeah.
And it's
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, and it's not it's complicated because it's not the opposite of like social interaction. It's a different version of it, and so we just don't really know what to do with it. And there's so much there with social media. I've been doing a lot of reading and studying around that through my schooling, and there's some really interesting research that shows facts like there's a large percentage, and if you'll bear with me, I wrote this one down because it's kind of a core idea that I spend a lot of time thinking about, so I want to get it right. But for Pew Research, they discovered, or they reported, that teenagers between 13 and 17, adolescents, so this group is the most active of all groups online. Okay. So kids 13 to 17, 95% reporting social media use, on a versus 5% who doesn't use social media. So the 95% who does, the majority of kids are on social media.
95% of that age group, first of all, are
using
on social media. What was the age again?
13 to 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so incredibly high. Okay.
And so that's just setting the scene.
Yeah.
So kids 13 to 17, 95% of those kids use social media. Of that 95%, 54% say they use it almost constantly. So almost constantly was the multiple choice option that they selected. So close to 50% of all kids between 13 and 17 would self-report that they use social media almost constantly. So the notifications that are coming up and it just permeates every aspect of their life, and going from, waking up with anxious thoughts to having a hard time going to sleep because of what they've been experiencing, and everything in between at school and all their interactions. And so between that and this whole conversation about AI, as therapists, we try to stick to and return to research. So research-based interventions and the research that's happening on social media and AI is us. It's happening, and we're part of it, and no one knows where it's going, and we're the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And so, is there good? Is there bad? Is there helpful, unhelpful, dangerous? Benefits and everything in between? Absolutely. But, we're the subjects in the study right now, and our kids are.
Makes me
especially.
wonder what it will be like in 10 years when we'll look back and say, wow, 54% of adolescents, that 95% use it, and 54% of those say they almost use it constantly. How's that going to impact them? What will that look like going forward? What, is this generation going to engage differently with the world and with each other because of that? And like you said, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, we are the guinea pigs, which is a little scary. It's an exciting time to be on the forefront of some of these innovations and changes. It's incredible. And yet I think there's also some, like, as you say that, I think, boy, why are 54% saying they're using it constantly? Like, what is it that we're needing to use social media constantly? What is it? I mean, there's a need there that somehow social media is trying to fill. Right? Some type of discomfort or need, right? And the same principle with AI, like, it's filling a need, but are we utilizing it in a way that's helping us and not harming us? And I really think that is the question at the end of the day, whether it's therapy or in general, are we utilizing it in a way that's augmenting the good that we have in our lives and the relationships and the things we're doing? Or is it allowing us to shy away from vulnerability and in interaction with others? And really getting honest with ourselves about that. Because it's easy to just go, no, this is what I do. I just pick up my phone and I type in something in AI, or I get on social media. But really getting honest with ourselves. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, that again, back to that 54%.
That's a staggering number, by the way.
Saying almost constantly.
Yeah.
And tying that into the mental health, where we're going with that. But I think what that also means is that they're almost constantly thinking about it. It's almost constantly impacting them, whether or not they have a screen in front of them. It's almost constantly, having an effect. And so, in doing research and looking it up, in the YouTube videos about AI and kind of like, where's it going? It seems to be very delineated between helpful and terrifying. Of like, well, you can program your AI to do all of these things for you. Let's walk through. Let's show you. It's convenient. And then the other side is, well, no one's going to have a job in 5 years, and if it lets you survive. If it lets you live through it.
If it allows you.
Yeah. And so it's just like, it's good or bad. And so just the conversation that needs to be happening somewhere in the middle in real life, in real time, in real terms. And so back to the question that you were asking, which was?
Well, it was the fact that like, it's just very interesting. It's all good that we are looking at this and looking at AI and saying, you know, it's that we have 54%. We have a 95% of adolescents and 54% of them are using it. And I think, you know, again, the question is why are we doing that? And just really to take a hard look at it and get really honest with ourselves, and be it ourselves, our partners, our children, you know, those that we engage with, just to really get honest with ourselves. Like, what's going on inside that are we helping, or are we kind of taking away from? Are we trying to kind of, no, I don't want to engage with this, and this is my way of doing it? Or is this a way of trying to help the good that I already have in my life? And to really get honest with ourselves about our usage as well as those around us, you know? So Garrett, let me just, let's finish with a couple of things. I want to just make sure that I didn't miss anything that, that you feel like is really important that we talk about. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on?
I mean, I think ultimately, like you were talking about how it impacts, I think, how do we navigate it, right? And we talk a lot in therapy and around therapy of identifying our values and what is actually most important to us. And this is a great opportunity to really boil that down to what is actually most important to me. And that thought process is going to kind of take us to the ends or the extremes of our lives and our existence, whether that be faith or our life goals, and so as we identify our values and take a hard look at how does this impact the way I'm living my life according to my values, is this...
I love that idea. Really quickly. Like our values, what matters most to me, and how is it impacting that? Excellent.
Is it helping me align more with my values, or is it a wedge and something that's inhibiting me from becoming what I want to be or doing what I want to do? And, you know, I think about my kids and what I would talk to them about with AI. And I want them to be very thoughtful about AI usage and what they do with it. Because in order for this conversation to age well into the next 10 years, as far as what we know right now, we need to be very thoughtful about how we use AI, because it can lead us astray. It can kind of replicate certain things in authentic ways. But ultimately, if we kind of get into the driver's seat and take control, we can use it for good, and we can use it to become more what we want to become, to overcome what we want to overcome. But it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Sure. I love that idea. You're in the driver's seat. Like let it help us. Don't let it hinder us.
Right.
And you really can go either way. But I love that reminder of living in your values. You know, like, is this helping me more align with my values, or is it taking me farther away? And gosh, I think that's such a good, important question, not just here, but in terms of AI, but in everything I'm doing. Am I going towards who I really want to be, what matters to me, or am I stepping away from that? Certainly in the online space. I think that's so important. A couple of things that I just want to recap that I thought were so important, as you said, using AI is a step in the right direction. If we're talking about therapy, like, it's a great step, and it's a great step to go towards going to therapy or seeking out, doing more introspective questioning, and that it's a great step in that direction, right? And I love the reminder that it spits out what we put into it. So it's only going to give us what we put into it. And real human interaction obviously is much richer and deeper than that, right? And then the reminder that researchers don't know where this is going. Like, we are all the guinea pigs here, and we're all the test rats, really. And then to really get clear, like, what is it? How's it helping me? How's it not serving me? And am I willing to recognize that and do some real work around those questions and not shy away from it, because it's not going anywhere, but to utilize it in ways that it can augment the good that you're doing in the world and in your relationships, but not take away from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I think, again, the question is a great question. I think it's one, can AI replace a therapist? I think it's one we're having a lot, and I appreciate it. And again, I think recognizing that healing happens in connection. Healing happens in relationship, and recognizing that AI can be a tool in that healing, but certainly not the only piece of that healing process. Well, Garrett, I really appreciate you being here and appreciate your insights. Always so great to talk to you. And thanks for being here in the seat with me.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Until next time, we're grateful for you being here. We hope this information was valuable for you as you navigate this new world of AI. And until next time, take care.